Hello and welcome to BloombergQuint. You're listening to me, Vishwanath Nair, in a conversation with Rajnish Kumar, who retired as the chairman of State Bank of India only on Tuesday. As the head of India's largest bank, Mr. Kumar has dealt with multiple issues including asset quality problems at the bank, digitization of a large institution, management of the Yes Bank crisis, and of course the resolution of Jet Airways. Now, Mr. Kumar, thank you for joining us. Let me start with my first question. On the day you took over, you had stated that your agenda will include stress asset management, focus on technology, and digitization of SBI. Do you think that agenda has been achieved?
Largely achieved, because it is always work in progress. For a large organization like the State Bank of India, anything what you initiate, it is always a work in progress, and it continues. But essentially, bank's balance sheet, yes, it has been repaired. The NPA bank is completely in control of the situation. Provision coverage ratio is one of the highest. The profit, you saw that last year was a record profit, and this year that record is likely to be broken. And in terms of digitization, SBI today has taken the pole position, and everybody else has to benchmark against what SBI is doing. And in terms of reorientation of the staff towards customer service, many steps have been taken, and they are yielding the desired result. So whatever was the agenda I had said at the beginning for myself, I think largely I have been able to achieve, in the sense that these are not the things which are the project that this is a 3-month project, 6-month project, 2-year project. It continues, but situation is absolutely bank management is on the top of the situation.
Right, sir. Secondly, do you feel that there is something that is still pending that you wish, if you had probably some more time, you could have devoted that to finishing?
No, as I said, it is a work in progress. So you would have taken it to the logical conclusion. Say, for example, digitization. So it is not something which will ever end. Whatever you do, something new will come. It is a continuous process. And same is the question around NPA management, asset quality management. So largely what has been done during my stay has been the complete reorganization of the bank. It has been reorganized all, whether it was stressed asset vertical, whether credit, the way bank handles credit, the way it manages risk, international banking group, and our retail banking business, where the latest creation was financial inclusion and micro market vertical. So I don't think that there is any immediate requirement of doing any reorganization of the bank, which has been done in a very big way and in a very silent manner. So what is now needed to be done is more of the maintenance, and whatever new technologies come, what are the new trends, just don't get lagged behind.
Right, sir. Sir, in the last 3 years, that it coincided with your term, but in the last 3 years, the banking sector has seen a lot of changes with respect to stress assets. Not only has the number and the amount of stress assets come down, that is to say fresh slippages, but there's also been a change in the way banks view and deal with stress assets. Yes. In your opinion, how has that change played out? What do you think is going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years as things develop?
No, one is that everybody has realized that you have to recognize NPAs upfront without hesitation. That is the regulatory stance. That is what the banks have to follow. When you deal with the NPA, or when you deal with the question of asset quality, there are several dimensions and aspects to it. It all starts with your underwriting process. What is the underwriting process? When you sanction the loan, how much due diligence you do at the pre-sanction stage? What is the bank's policy around the portfolio mix, industry mix, geographical diversification? So that is the underwriting part. Then is the actual sanction process, that how competent is the team which underwrites, and what are the sanction processes in the bank. And third is, what do you do post-sanction? And the banking system, and including State Bank of India, the issue has always been majorly on the post-sanction monitoring, not as much pre-sanction and sanction stage. But post-sanction monitoring also, a lot of work has been done in terms of early warning signals, monitoring of accounts, use of technology to monitor transactions. So a lot of work has been done. The second is that if an account becomes NPA, showing signs of sickness, how quickly you act in terms of recognizing it. And then is what is the provisioning policy. And today, at least in State Bank, we had a very aggressive provisioning policy. And that's why we are holding the highest provision. Bank is holding the highest provision coverage ratio. So what it does is that if you set aside enough provision, then as and when the recovery happens, it adds to your bottom. So that is a major shift as far as the State Bank of India is concerned.
Right, sir. Since we are talking about stress assets and the rest of the system, two major cases which took place during your term as the SBI chairman. The first was the entire situation with Jet Airways. Now I remember that it was an interview with BloombergQuint where you had said that the solution would come in about 2 months. It unfortunately didn't play out that way. To your mind, Jet Airways and Yes Bank, in both situations, of course, you had a key role to play, in managing the situation. Do you wish that things would have happened differently?
No, as far as things can always happen differently. In case of Yes Bank, RBI allowed enough time to the management to raise the capital and through a market-determined mechanism. But that did not happen, and there was a situation where bank reached what is called PONP, point of non-viability. And then all these measures had to be taken. And where the mantle fell on the State Bank of India to lead its revival. And I think it was not possible for any other bank to lead. About Jet Airways, if the rules were not so stringent around the acquisition, around the open offer, or around the value which an investor would pay, then the story could have been different. Those rules have been changed now, SEBI rules. But the situation at that time was very different. The investors were willing to put money at a price, and for a stressed asset, nobody wanted to make an open offer. Everybody wanted that the money should be invested in the airline. And unfortunately, that could not happen, and that's why this could not go through. Other than that, I think banks put in a lot of effort to see that the Jet Airways keeps continuing flying. It was the only full-service premier airline in the country, and investment was in sight, but because of certain regulations, it did not happen. And I am happy that at least now, learning probably from the Jet Airways and Yes Bank episode, that necessary amendments in the SEBI regulations have been carried out.
Right, sir. Speaking about SBI and the profitability of the bank, now I was looking at the profit numbers. Of course, they have improved significantly in the last 3 or 4 quarters. No, actually longer than that. But that 1% ROA which you had aimed for in your long-term plan, that is still pending. As Mr. Khara takes over today, what do you think will be the key to ensure that that profitability measure is met?
In SBI, the ultimate and eventual ROA depends upon the credit cost. And pre-provision operating profit is on the right track. It can easily grow at around 10% per annum. and then achieving 1% ROA by March 22 may not be difficult to achieve, and everything would depend upon how the credit cost spends out to be.
And the obvious factor in that would be how the COVID-19 pandemic and the asset quality in that pans out.
Yes.
Right. Talking about SBI's businesses, now of course as the largest bank in the country, it is there in every imaginable banking business in the country. Do you think that there is something that the bank needs to put more emphasis on going ahead?
No, one is that the bank's biggest strength is the number of customers it serves, its distribution franchise, the trust factor, liability franchise of the bank is very strong. And what is the emphasis is, and Dinesh is part of this entire process in the last 3 years, is the operational efficiency, and we have achieved a certain level of operational efficiency through use of technology. So the operating cost to income ratio also has come down significantly by almost 700 basis points, but there is still a scope to achieve further cost efficiency. And on the operating income front, I think the liability franchise has been managed very well. That has led to higher NIIs. So as I said, that pre-provision operating profit, I don't have any concern. And bank, the way it is growing, it will have a steady growth in pre-provision operating profit. And depending upon how the credit cost works out to be, in a normal scenario and in a stress scenario, that would determine what is the ultimate ROA and ROE you get.
And now let's come to the sector for a bit, because of course as the SBI Chairman, your responsibility was also to look at how the sector is developing. Is consolidation, which the government has pushed for and which has been happening in the sector, is consolidation the way forward to ensure that we have a safe, trustworthy banking system?
We need a few large banks because the system is still fragmented. And through consolidation, at least now after SBI, there will be 4 or 5 large banks. So that helps. And I think that was the way forward given way back in 95 by the 7 committee recommendation. If you look at, so at least now we are moving in that direction. And there are teething problems around the merger, but they will also be taken care of eventually. And then at least after State Bank, we have 4 or 5 large public sector banks. So that way I think it is a move in the right direction. There are attendant problems, but they will be sorted out.
Okay. Now that we are coming out of a pandemic, slowly but steadily we are coming out of the impact of the pandemic. How is the banking system going to change? I mean, obviously digitization is one thing, the adoption of digital technologies. But other than that, how will banks and banking change in the time ahead?
Bank, in any case, the trend was towards digitization, contactless banking. That trend was very much there. And what pandemic has done, that it has given a push. So earlier it was there was a lot of push from the banking system to push for digitization, but now the post-pandemic or in pandemic area, the pull factor also has become strong. So that's why we will see more and more digitization, and the banking is changing. It's changing very fast, and the pandemic has further the pace of that change is now faster and will become faster. And any bank which doesn't act on technology front in a big way, then they will be laggards.
Right, sir. You also spent a lot of time and effort in developing YONO as a strong platform, not just for your customers, but as you have mentioned, also to develop it for other banks which may not be able to afford technological platforms. Do you think that has been achieved? More work required on that front?
No, there is more work required. So these are like BloombergQuint is getting ready, and a lot of discussion is happening. internally, but that is a very it is feasible and possible to do what we are talking about.
Last questions of advice to your successor. Do you think he needs it, or do you think that?
No, they all are like the advantage of the State Bank of India that it is a continuity in a way, because any managing director who has been on the board, they are part of the decision making, they are part of the team, and that is where I don't think that any advice is needed in that sense. And it is as I said, that because the person who takes over mental is from within the system, that helps a lot in continuity.